Today we're going to be talking about being independent minded in particular in sports, but we can carry this conversation in other aspects of our life, right? But today we have our good brother, Mr. One and only himself, Mr. Tony Harvey. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great, brother Amoya. How you doing? Thank you for inviting me. For this special occasion here to talk about some serious issues that have been happening in sports in the past few weeks.
Definitely, man. I want to also get into how this, actually impacts, the black community as well, right? Beyond the sports, because, sometimes when we watch sports, sometimes we don't properly analyze things outside of sports. We kind of just watch for entertainment. So hopefully we'll be able to give some good information today, which I think we will.
I agree with you totally, 100%.
All right, brother. So let's start off with the first slide here. We have I guess these are the top picks, or all the picks from the draft from the 2025. So I'm just going to read the first couple of picks, including Shedeur Sanders, and then we can start elaborating on this in addition to the the information that I did some research on. So let's go here. It says this was from College Football on Fox. This was their Facebook page. It says every QB that was taken in the 2025 NFL Draft. Which player are you most excited to watch at the next level? Question mark. All right, it says so. Cam Ward was the first pick out of Miami. Ole Miss, Jackson Dart. He was the first round as well. He's pick number 25. We have Tyler Show, who's he's going to the Cardinals. All right, I think he played
No, no,
for
no, no, no. He
Louisville.
played at Louisville. He played for the
Oh, my
Louisville
bad. He
University of
played for
Louisville
Louisville.
Cardinals.
Okay. Louisville Cardinals, and then he's going to New Orleans. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, round 2 pick. Thanks for that. Jalen Milroe, Alabama, round 3. He's going to Seattle, pick 92. Dylan Gabriel, round 3, he's pick 94. He's going to the Cleveland Browns. And then we have Shedeur Sanders, who's came out of Colorado, round 5, pick 144. So do you want to elaborate on any of those picks, and then I'll go into some more information? That's all.
Well, no more than Cam Ward out of the University of Miami. He's definitely was the top choice, and as it should be. He's a proven quarterback, and I think he's going to be even better at the next level. He can throw, he can run, really smart. He can throw he can throw outside and inside the pocket. So that brother, he's well deserving of that number one pick. Now, when you kind of stroll down here, and you know where we're getting at,
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, eh, Tyler Show, eh, Jalen Milroe, eh, and Dylan Gabriel. Now, Dylan Gabriel, I do like Dylan Gabriel. I've seen a lot of him playing in the Big Ten in the past season. Of course, y'all know I'm from Illinois, and I was basically, literally born on the campus of the University of Illinois. But anyway, I watched him play Illinois, and he ripped them up. I watched him play Ohio State twice. First time they beat Ohio State by 1 point. Second time, Gabriel, they lost to Ohio State for the national championship. I think he's going to be a proven quarterback, but he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns as well as Shedeur Sanders, which we are getting down to. And as everybody know, in the past few weeks, and what we have learned, we thought that Shedeur, coming out the University of Colorado, put up some great numbers in the 2 years that he was there, that he would definitely go in the first round. But that did not happen. That did not happen. He was picked in the fifth round. He was the 144th selection in the fifth round. And he's right behind Dylan Gabriel, who was number 94. So those two rookies coming out the collegiate ranks will be playing for the Cleveland Browns, which is pretty interesting because the Browns are carrying 5 quarterbacks right now, with the exception of Deshaun Watson, who is recovering from a ACL injury. So it's going to basically come down to Gabriel, Shedeur, Joe Flacco, and Kenny Pickett. Somebody's going to be cut.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to be cut. Okay, which is even makes it a more peculiar situation with Shedeur because I would have thought that some of the teams out there that really needed a quarterback would have picked him up a little higher, but there were some things going on about his attitude or whether or not he had the skills to do it at the next level, considering where he started at Omoya, because he did start at HBCU, Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. He brought that program up in 1 year or two
Mm-hmm.
years or whatever it was, real quick. Him and his dad, because when his dad took over the job right there, he followed along with his dad. He and his brother, Shiloh, who's a defensive back, who also was undrafted, but he was picked up as a free agent for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So he'll be joining that. But I just really do think Shador got shafted. Um, the family got blackballed, in this process, and that's basically where we at. Now, there's been a lot of debates and arguments about the Shador family, Shador himself, but I think he will be okay at the right level. I actually saw an Instagram message today, Omoya. He's in the Cleveland Browns locker room. He's at his locker. He's checking out all his equipment, his playbook, his practice jersey. You can just look at that segment, that the love that he had for this game, because he's explaining all the stuff that's in his locker. And he's like, now I got to go out there and prove myself. Now I have
Mm-hmm.
to go out there and prove myself. So either way it goes, whether you were number one, number two, number three, number four, number five, you still have to prove yourself in the National Football League. He understands that. I just think that with the situation with Cleveland, that somebody in there could be trade bait. I don't know how they're going to do this. They probably already have a plan. Usually these teams do. So we'll see what happens with the situation there. But and another thing that I also want to bring up too, the University of Colorado football team, practically all of them had a 3.0 GPA, grade point average.
Wow, that's great.
Okay. Travis Hunter, who was the second pick in the NFL draft, played the University of Colorado. He also was at Jackson State with Deion Sanders, the head coach, as well. He graduated today,
Wow,
and
congratulations. That's
a
wonderful.
few other Black American athletes from Colorado football team. They graduated. So what that tells you? It tells me that if you playing for Deion Sanders in the collegiate ranks, you better have everything together on and off the field, on and off the field. So I know we were talking a little bit about it before we went on there about Deion Sanders' arrogance or what others may have to say with it. I hope he never changed who he is. Who he is. I remember a few years ago, actually, it was the day before I was supposed to fly out to D.C. Yeah, it was the day before I was supposed to fly out to Washington D.C. for the inauguration back in 2009 when Barack was about to be inaugurated. He came here to speak to some low risk uh, kids here in Sacramento. Deion Sanders did. He and his
Mm-hmm.
wife Pilar at that time. They were brought by another former Dallas Cowboy athlete here. It was about 200 people here, and that's all he talked. He talked more about how to get to success than he talked about being a success. There's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference. So I appreciate how he raised his son. He raised him and his wife, how they raised their son to be as confident to make it in this world. Of course, you know, they have had a lot of advantages, basically almost having a silver spoon in their mouth when they were born. But I think he guided them the right way. What's going to happen here, as they get older, that's up to them. but they done made it this far, and I think they're going to be okay from there.
All
Especially
right.
Shedeur. I expect Shedeur to be the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns if he stays with them, if he's not traded or anything like that. That's what I expect. Because with Cleveland, and I just want to wrap this up, with Cleveland drafting Gabriel and they got Shedeur, something else is there.
Hmm.
They can dangle some things and trade for some other players across the league.
Yeah, I definitely think so, man. Because having Gabriel and Sanders on the same team, I don't know how that's going to work out. Because I mean, they're both really good quarterbacks who can contribute at least potentially.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's going to be interesting. Um,
Well, it's already interesting because of the barriers, if you will. Joe Flacco, 40 years old. Kenny Pickett, he done been on for a few teams. Where he was at in Pittsburgh. I forget where he was at last year, but he did play for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a few years. And those barriers, I mean, these guys got experience.
right.
But in the same regard, Shador and Gabriel can learn from those two as much as they can as far as who's going to be in the team. Now, they don't have to cut anybody. They don't have to trade anybody. Okay, one of those quarterbacks, they can put them on the practice squad or develop the younger ones. So we'll see what happens. But it
Mhm.
is going to be an interesting training camp that's coming up in another month or so, a couple of months, end of July.
Absolutely.
Let's just say that.
Absolutely. All right, man. So let's read a little bit about the draft, and depending on which round, a player gets picked, it could mean some more money. So here we go. Uh, so NFL draft picks generally receive larger rookie contracts as their draft position increases. The higher a player is drafted, the more money they make. Here's a breakdown. First round, the highest paid picks, for example, in the 2025 draft, the number one pick is projected to receive a contract worth roughly 43 million, while the last pick in the first round will receive a contract around 12.75 million. Second and third rounds, contracts continue to decrease in value as the draft progresses. In later rounds, players drafted later in the rounds receive significantly lower salaries. The last pick, often nicknamed Mr. Irrelevant, that's cold, but anyway, nobody's irrelevant, but anyway, to that one, is esteemed to receive a contract worth around 4 million. Hey, I wouldn't mind having 4 million in my bank account, so okay. But it just goes to show you, right, that um, being picked higher, which I think going into this 2025 draft, people thought that Shedeur Sanders was going to be at least picked in the first or second round, at least.
Michael Irving, former wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys, when he was speaking on it, he was providing his commentary about Shador Sanders' situation. He said Shador lost $50 million. That's from his perspective.
Hmm.
Number two, you just brought up Mr. Irrelevant. Well, that's Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers because he was the last pick of the draft a few years ago. And
Hmm.
he did get that $4 million contract. I think it evened out to around 950,000 or something like that per year. Well, he's in line to make 40 or 50 million a year now for being
There
the
you
last
go.
person picked in the draft. Okay, because he has taken them to the Super Bowl against Kansas City a couple of seasons ago. They lost, but he had been doing really, really well. Of course, they had a high-powered offense and some extremely talented players on both sides of the ball, offensively
Right.
and defensively. But what I'm saying here, just because of where you pick, doesn't mean you can still strive to get, your biggest payday in the future. Because all these picks are
Absolutely.
not going to pan out anyway. We
Right.
know that. Okay, there's going to be some ups and downs. There's going to be some surprises, and I wish them all well and things. But at least one of the guaranteed things about this is, for getting picked in any round, one
Hmm.
through five or whatever, they're gonna make some money. They will
Yeah.
make some money.
Hey,
They will get a
bro.
contract. Yeah, because that
That's
$43
all.
million dollars that you talking about, that reflects Cam Ward position, number one.
Hmm. Right.
So is that a total package of four? Because I think that averaged out about $11 million for the first 11 million per for the first 4 years, and
Mm,
then depending on your performances and progresses and wins and losses, well, not necessarily wins and losses because some of these people on losing teams and got some big massive contracts that will play into your next line of negotiation.
mm, okay. All right, so I'm gonna go through this article here. It's a couple of slides. So for those who are watching it, appreciate you for joining. Please like, share, and subscribe to MNMS Media Group. All right, so in this article by USA Today, we're gonna go over what they believe why Shedeur Sanders got picked in the fifth round. There are many layers to why quarterback Shedeur Sanders had a precipitous drop in the 2025 NFL draft. The quarterback was forecasted by many to go in the first round after he set Colorado's single season records for passing yards, completions, attempts, touchdowns, completion percentage, and quarterback rating last year. Yet, Sanders didn't hear his name called until the Cleveland Browns selected him in the fifth round of the 2025 NFL draft. Even with the production and the talent, there was still a question after he tumbled down draft boards all the way to Saturday afternoon. Why did Sanders slide to round five? USA Today Sports spoke to several individuals around the NFL to investigate why Sanders fell to the 144th overall pick in the fifth round of the draft. Why did Shedeur Sanders fall in the draft? Overall ability as an NFL quarterback, despite Sanders' success at Jackson State, which Tony Ray Harvey did mention, and Colorado, many NFL teams didn't view him as a top quarterback prospect. Quote, he's a really good quarterback, but doesn't have traits that jump off the chart, end quote. Former NFL All-Pro running back and current NFL Network analyst Maurice Jones-Drew told USA Today Sports, doesn't mean he's not good, but he's not the fastest and doesn't have the strongest arm. Continues, there were several reports leading up to the draft that criticized Sanders' draft interview process. CBS Sports reported that Sanders spiraled down the draft reflects how he carried himself during the process. The Ringer reported Sanders had a poor interview with the New York Giants, a team that ultimately selected quarterback Jackson Dart in the first round. An anonymous NFL assistant coach told NFL Network his meeting with Sanders was the worst formal interview he ever had. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Question. And when the juice has some flaws, the squeeze of managing the personality and dad equal it. He's referring to Deion Sanders being the dad, equal it not being worth it in a lot of instances, end quote. And NFL agent told USA Today Sports. The agent spoke on condition of anonymity. Okay, get it right. Anonymity, because they don't represent Sanders. Furthermore, Sanders declined to play at the East-West Shrine Bowl and elected not to participate in drills at the NFL Combine. Each event can impact a prospect's draft status. Okay, so I briefly want to touch on this real quick because for those that don't know, my dad actually played in the NFL. He actually played at Oregon University. He actually played in the East-West Shrine. And it's a little different these days. I mean, I don't know, but Tony, you might have another thing, but like I think some players are just skipping the East-West Shrine game because I mean, one, they don't want to get hurt.
They don't want to
Two,
get injured.
yeah,
Right.
and two, it's not as big of a deal these days.
It isn't.
So let's just keep it real. So
It isn't.
that
Yeah.
was here or there for me.
Yeah. Right.
And I guess he didn't participate in drills in the NFL Combine. But anyway, according to this article, each event can impact a prospect's draft status. Quote, it's important to remember that it's still a job interview when we're going through the pre-draft process, and as clubs are evaluating a potential face of the franchise, it's important for a QB to look the part and present himself in a certain way. And an NFL agent told USA Today Sports they spoke on condition of anonymity because they don't represent Sanders. I have a few more slides, but I kind of want to get your take on this one. And I
Yeah.
wanted to highlight this one. It says QB to look the part and present himself in a certain way. Like,
Well,
what does
yeah.
that
What
mean?
they're saying that the quarterback is the face of the franchise. That's always been the case because they're the leader. They have the ball in their hand the most. Okay, they're the ones supposed to be making the right decisions, quick decisions, and they're the ones supposed to be winning games, a lot of games. That's basically what they're saying. Usually in these cases, um, not usually. This is well known, especially when you're scouting prospects to join your team. They go through a rigorous process of trying to find out everything they can about these quarterbacks, these players overall, these athletes overall, before they draft them. So maybe there were some things in there that Shedeur Sanders didn't do that some people didn't like, and there were some things reported that way. Okay, that could have cost him as well. All right, I heard he didn't interview well. And there was a lot of arrogance there. There's just reports that I'm hearing. I understand all of that, but a lot of these, I mean, Cam Ward is he's an arrogant, cocky athlete himself. Okay, and yeah, but that's basically where we are about that situation and stuff. Who do we want to be the face of your franchise? Because there's been some extremely bust, in the NFL and the NBA and even Major League Baseball. Okay, Jamarcus Russell, who was drafted by what was then the Oakland Raiders years ago, 15 or so years ago, was one of the most disappointing athletes I know to be a quarterback. And there are some other busts, but that one really sticks out as well. I don't think Shedeur is going to fall into that category, even at being picked in the fifth round. I think it's okay. Also, I don't think that what level that some of these quarterbacks come in and they be top prospects going into the draft has anything to do with it. Cam Ward, Cam Ward was from Texas. He basically grew up with Shedeur. All right. Cam Ward, he go to Incarnate Word, which is another division. You got Division 1 football, and then you got a division lower than that, FBS football. Okay. He went to Incarnate Word, which is a really good football program in Texas. Really, really good. They played Sacramento State a couple seasons ago for during the playoffs, and they beat. No, no, no. They was in the shootout with They was in the shootout with Sac State, and Sac State won that game. But I don't think that should have Shedeur coming from an HBCU should have anything to do with that anyway. Because speaking of Cam Ward, he left Incarnate Word, and then he went to Washington State. He played there. He left there, then he went to Miami and had his great season. So he bounced around a little bit too. But guess what? His skills, his talent was still in tow. They
Mm.
still attached to him. Wherever he goes, that's it. I don't care what field he's playing on. And that's what Shedeur did too, going from a HBCU to a Division 1 school. That was terrible, terrible, terrible.
Terrible.
Before him and his dad and his brother Shiloh got there, and Travis Hunter. I don't want to leave out Travis Hunter because he's
Yeah.
one of the best two-way
Travis Hunter.
players right
Oh
now.
my, tell me about it.
We don't want to leave that out as well. So uh, the critics can say whatever happened, during the process, and I'm not saying that they're all, the owners. Well, I am saying that they're, mostly at fault, but and I don't even know if Shedeur had an agent. That part I haven't
Yeah,
understood right there.
we're going to get into that a little later.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to highlight that, just to elaborate what you're saying. I think the troubling thing about what this anonymous agent said is looking the part and present himself in a certain way, because we know historically, the quarterback position um, has been predominantly white, right? For many years. I would probably say up until, I mean, you had like one or two quarterbacks, black quarterbacks, but I mean, they rarely played up until Washington. They're not called Redskins now, just being
Yeah,
visual.
called the Commanders.
Commandos, or something like that. Um,
Mhm.
what's his name? Williams, Doug Williams.
Doug Williams, right? He won a Super Bowl with the
Right.
Washington, what were then the Redskins, now the Commanders. He won a Super Bowl with them.
So
He
this whole
and then
idea
that
of
pretty much started kind of like opening the doors,
right.
you know. Then we started, seeing well, Warren Moon was already
Yeah, we had Warren
he
Moon
they was
too.
we had Warren Moon, another great quarterback, but he spent many years up in the Canadian Football League before he came down to the Houston Oilers, which are now the Tennessee Titans, and started blowing it up. But he played for about 15 more years, about 15
Right.
more years and things like that. So, and you got the Donovan McNabb. He had some success in Philly. Uh, there was another black Philly quarterback that I cannot think of right now. Randy. What's Randy's last name? I can't think of him, but he had some success there. He won a lot of games there. Couldn't get him, couldn't win a lot of games in the playoff, but he got there. But yes, the league has been predominantly uh, white for many, many years. But as the games continued to speed up, and then it was okay for quarterbacks to run frequently, then that kind of changed the game because you definitely have to have accuracy as well. Lamar Jackson, we're speaking of. Okay, Deshaun Watson was extremely gifted running and throwing the ball until he got all into that trouble with those lawsuits and things, and now he's injured. We won't see too much of what he's doing, and then
Right.
we do have Patrick Mahomes, who has won 3 or 4 Super Bowls as well. Probably definitely one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league, as well as talent, because all you need is Patrick Mahomes. He didn't really have a great team this past season that lost to the Eagles, but
Mhm.
he carried them all the way there, and they barely won a lot of those games through the regular season. So, uh, not to say that there's a continuous emerge of black quarterback, but they are still out there. They are they are still serviceable, and they will be drafted. But yeah, the
Yeah, and
NFL is
briefly,
a strange it's a strange organization, but it's well, I would say it's a little bit better than Major League Baseball as well. It's definitely not as progressive as the NBA, as we all know, but you know, it's really up to the owners. They
right.
decide who they want on their team, whether they're good or bad. And as we see, I'm sorry, there's at least 3 quarterbacks ahead of Shedeur that I don't think are as talented as he is, except for Daniel Gabriel. I'll put him right
Mhm.
behind him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man. I also want to mention I looked up Joe Gilliam Jr., who
He was the
briefly
first, wasn't
played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yep.
he? He was the
Um,
first.
yeah, unfortunately had a unfortunate situation happen with him during that was with Terry Bradshaw, and
Yeah.
my understanding, people were saying, "Oh, Joe Gilliam should have definitely played," you know, but I think he was going through some extracurricular activities, supposedly, allegedly,
Hmm.
and which didn't further his NFL career. But
I'm not taking anything away from Terry Bradshaw, but uh, talent wise, he was average.
yeah,
But
definitely
he
average man.
he knew how to win. That was the whole thing. He was a winner. He was a winner. So, and he played on a team that had offensive power set and a defensive power set. Okay, and he had probably one of the best blocking running backs in the game of Franco Harris
Oh yeah,
as well.
definitely,
So,
man. So, but yeah, man, I just kind of wanted to highlight that point because I think it's just important for the audience to know who doesn't follow sports, or if you do follow sports, the history of the quarterback position, because it's just one of those things, man. When you talk about looking the part and presenting himself in a certain way, it's like, well, who exactly are you referring to regarding about looking the part and presenting themselves? So, um,
well, you go
you
all
know
the
what I'm
way
saying?
back to the early part when the NFL started and the AFL as well. But the AFL was a little bit more progressive. They
Yep.
started 20 years after the NFL, but when it did come to the time to start uh, drafting and signing black players, they only played on the defensive side,
Mm-hmm.
and they really only played. They was in the defensive backfield.
Yep.
Okay. Then slowly, they started, drifting to the front line. Then you had, the defensive end segment. Then on the other side of the ball, the offensive line to the running backs. And he started drafting running backs. But at this time, they still felt that like black quarterbacks could not handle the pressure. So it's been many, many years. It's just been a gradually ascension to get to these certain positions anyway. I'm talking about the black athletes. So,
Right. Exactly.
yeah.
All right, man. Well, let's continue here. It says, by Sanders' own admission, shows he may have had second thoughts about how he handled the entirety of the pre-draft process. "Quote: I feel like in life, there's always a way I can improve. I'm able to improve in some things that I did that seemed right at the time. I could have went about it a different way," he said. So, um,
Yeah, that's a sign of a young man. It's actually a sign of a young man who's taking accountability as well.
exactly, exactly, man. So shout out to Shedeur. Sanders doesn't have a traditional certified NFL agent, so that answers your question. Uh, his
Hmm.
his Hall of Famer father, Dion, guides him. "Quote: His father has a strong presence in his life, and not to mention he has been through this process. I think a lot of people are intimidated by that," former NFL defensive end Hugh Douglas said to USA Today Sports. A prominent NFL agent told USA Today Sports that Sanders' choice not to have a traditional agent is self-serving. They spoke on condition of anonymity because they don't represent the QB. A traditional agent could have, okay, let's see how this goes. A traditional agent could have informed Sanders of his draft stock or helped him improve his standings. It's worth noting there are other NFL players who don't have traditional agents. For example, two-time NFL MVP Lamar Jackson represents himself, as does 10-time Pro Bowler Bobby Wagner, to name a few notable players.
Yep,
So
that is
yeah,
true.
so
That
I
is true.
mean,
But I think, see, I don't. Going in, I think Lamar did have an agent. Then after he started playing for a few years, he abandoned that situation. And I think that Bobby Wagner did the same thing. He had an agent when he first came into the league. Then after that, it was like, well, my stats speak for themselves. So we can go on the numbers based on the rest of the league, and I will get the money that I demand and more. Shedeur is coming right in at the door. He did not have an agent to guide him through that process to prove his marketability. So that didn't happen. But I understand, I mean, even in NBA, there's a couple people who negotiate their own contracts, or they have another family member who will negotiate their contract. I can assure you one thing: Jaden McDaniel, the quarterback, the brother for the Washington Commanders, I know his mom is watching over all those negotiations when it comes to contracts, especially
mm-mm.
in the future and stuff. Because I think she's an attorney. She's a lawyer.
Well, yeah, man, and the reason why I wanted to kind of have us elaborate on that, because oftentimes I'm not gonna say those folks, and I know you know who I'm talking about. Oftentimes, man, especially when it comes to the business side of thing, not only in football but in Hollywood, um, contracts dealing with HR. Oftentimes, it's not black people who are representing other black people in those particular positions. So when Shedeur was like, "I'm good, me and my pops is going to work out," I thought that was a good look, right? Because I mean, some people may say like, "Well, you don't want family involved, whatever." Why not? And we're going to get
Yes,
into that later. Why it's important to have family
I
involved,
think it would
right?
be, some of these people within the best interest. I mean, this is my mom and my dad. I trust them and I trust their
Thank you.
judgment. Okay.
I mean,
And
obviously,
he
parents.
didn't have, look here, Shador probably got about $4 or $5 million or more sitting in his pocket already. Okay.
Right,
So we know this ain't about money or anything like that. All right. Especially with NIL, floating out there in the collegiate ranks, the name, image, and likeness where
right.
these athletes can start making some money right now. He done been in the Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial, him and his dad. Okay. And he just picked up another endorsement. a major endorsement like the other day. So we know this ain't no problem with no money. Okay. His thing was where I'm going to get drafted. Where will I get drafted? Period. We thought it was going to be in the first round. It wasn't. Okay. There's a lot of money in the first round. So he's at the fifth spot, 144 pick. That's where you have to start at because he got money. All right. He's, he don't need no signing bonus or anything like that. Just give me a playbook and let's go out there and work.
Well,
Period.
I'm sure he wouldn't mind the bonus though, bro.
I
I'm
wouldn't
sure
turn
he
it
wouldn't
down
mind.
either. I wouldn't turn it down either though. You
Hey,
know,
brother,
brother
get as
Glass, I'm
much.
not turning down. I'm not
I
turning
mean, get
down.
as much money as you can whenever you can, especially black
Still gonna have to pay
people.
taxes on it anyways.
Hey, brother, on this platform we talk about reparations every day, and we know that
Every
it's
day, get
owed.
it all. Get it.
Brother,
Cut the check.
cut it, man. So whatever money you can get from where you need to get to, and you doing what you love to do, shoot, man. But let's move on, man. It looks like Jeff Ulbrich, who is part of the Falcons, Atlanta Falcons organization. For those that don't know, I guess his son did something out of the ordinary that people shouldn't be doing during draft sessions. But let's get into it. It says Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich apologized publicly Wednesday for the leak of Shedeur Sanders' private phone number and his son using it to prank call the quarterback during the NFL draft. Quote, my actions of not protecting confidential data were inexcusable, Ulbrich said at a news conference at the Falcons faculty. My son's actions were absolutely inexcusable, and for that, we are both deeply sorry. Earlier in the day, the NFL fined the Falcons $250,000 and Ulbrich himself $100,000 in response to the situation. Ulbrich's 21-year-old son admitted to the prank call and apologized in an Instagram post. The Falcons said in a statement Sunday that Jax Ulbrich wrote down the number from his father's open iPad while visiting his parents' home to later conduct a prank call. Let's see, it goes on. Okay, the prank. It looks like it says the caller told Sanders, which is Ulbrich's son, we're going to take you with our next pick, man, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, man. Sorry about that. End quote. Confused Sanders asked the crowd gathered for his draft party. He was like, man, what does this mean? I'm going to go ahead and play the clip and then we'll get into it. Here's an apology.
Do an opening statement, open up with a few questions.
First of all, I'd like to publicly apologize to Shedeur and the Sanders family for what occurred. Second of all, I want to publicly apologize to Mr. Blank, Terry Fontenot, Raheem Morris, and the entire Falcons organization. My actions of not protecting confidential data were inexcusable. My son's actions were absolutely inexcusable. And for that, we are both deeply sorry. The NFL has taken action, and I fully respect the punishment. We take full responsibility, my son and myself, and we will not be appealing the fine in any way. Going forward, I promise my son and I will work hard to demonstrate we are better than this. Again, I'm deeply sorry for our actions.
Questions?
Jeff, when did you become aware that he was involved in this situation?
After the draft, yeah.
What was your reaction and how did you process it with your family and the team?
Yeah, obviously not happy and shocked. And so I made the Falcons aware of the situation. And then our next course of action was to try to get a hold of the Sanders family so we could apologize in person, which we were able to do. The Sanders family, Shedeur and Coach Sanders, were amazingly gracious, more gracious than they needed to be in a moment like this.
Boom. So there you
Interesting.
go, man.
Interesting. Interesting. I like that last part. I like that last part.
Hey, man. I
Family
mean,
showed through it all. Family showed class.
absolutely.
Let's move on. But that was pretty disrespectful. pretty much an insult, embarrassing for both sides of the family, their family and Sanders' families. Hopefully, that'll teach people in the future. For one thing, protect your iPad or whatever that is, and keep keep your son out your business
Thank you,
stuff.
man. Whoa, bro. I mean, that could have been just resolved just the first get go, man. But yeah, people
Yeah.
I mean, especially, man, where you're talking about where stakes. Look, I know this ain't curing cancer and all that other stuff, but this is serious. You know what I
It
mean?
is.
For the
It
people
is.
that are involved in this, I mean, that's not funny, bro. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? This is your livelihood you're talking about. That's like somebody who, I mean, if you're going for a job interview, you know what I mean? And somebody from your job interview called you, said, "Hey, you got an interview on such and such time," and just messing with you. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
think, "Oh, I'm preparing for a job interview," and then you get there, and then, oh, and that's a lawsuit right there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so
That's
it's
why they had to get out in front of it and go to the family and do all the things that they
yep,
did. Okay.
absolutely, bro. So
Exactly.
I want to play a couple more videos, and then I want to get on to some of these comments, and then yep, let's play a couple videos. Oh my gosh, here we go.
Why are you the only kid that hate no? Why are you the only kid in the draft potential first picks or whatever pick that they hate on? Why are you the only one?
Cause you prime time.
No, because they want you to slide to their team. It's game.
That's what
It's
yeah.
game. But we know the game. We Sanders, baby.
If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't give me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over. And I've done it over and over and over. So it should be no question why NFL franchise should pick me.
Will you step in and do some of that if it's the wrong organization and say he ain't going there?
Yeah, but I'm not going to do it publicly. I'll do it privately.
The NFL has been clueless for 50 years when it comes to evaluating quarterback. Clueless. No idea what they're doing in terms of evaluating quarterback. That's proof. There's proof of that.
How many
they say we know exactly what we're talking about with quarterback. They don't.
I mean, how many times did Raul get touched? How many times did Raul get touched? They was able, like, of course, whenever you're able to run the ball consistently and whenever you're able to, then that opens up the pass, you know? But it's just like you got to understand, like, what your team good at.
On perfect time already.
Come on, bro, let's make a song. Let's drop one, real shit. I play football. Here we go.
Yeah, it is football.
All right, man. So I wanted to show that because, you know, some people may look at that being as arrogant or whatever, but I kind of wanted to transition into the perception of the Sanders family, comparatively speaking to Eli Manning. If you want, man, if you want to go into kind of the Eli Manning situation, since you actually
Yeah.
paid attention to my attention.
When Eli Manning was coming out of Ole Miss, his dad, who was a Hall of Famer in the NFL, and his dad did play at the University of Mississippi as well. When Eli came out, Archie Manning, his dad, publicly, this is a clip floating around there with him talking to probably about 10 or 15 reporters saying, okay, I don't want any NFL team on the West Coast drafting my son. Okay? That didn't seem like that was a problem. That did not seem like a problem. You just heard Dion say, there's some teams out there I don't want to draft my son, but I ain't going to say it, publicly, but I would say it privately. So if that had happened, he was going to handle it another way. See, that's another problem too. What they thought, what was going on with Dion and his son, the nepotism part. Well, Archie was doing it for his son, and what happens? He got drafted by the New York Giants. Spent his whole career with the New York Giants. Won 2 Super Bowls with the New York Giants because his dad was there for nepotism to help navigate his career, his pathway to be exact. So why do we have a problem with the Sanders families for I'm not saying overconfident, feeling confident, for the things that they want to do, okay, that they've been working for all this young man's life.
Yep.
It's no problem. But that wasn't a problem. Like they said, it's a problem when I do it. It's okay when others do it. and
Yeah,
that's Deion Sanders.
right, man. And so I also wanted to talk about, since we're talking about independent um, kind of thinking and minds, right? So we have here Ice Cube, and I'm just going to go ahead and read this article. For those who don't know about the Big Three, Ice Cube, can't remember the part. He has a partner too as well. Created the Big Three, which predominantly has retired NBA players, predominantly. But anyway, let's go into this article to see what the article says about Ice Cube's Big Three. It says the National Basketball Association is reportedly being investigated. By the way, this article came out in 2023, so things have transpired since then, but this was during 2023. The NBA is reportedly being investigated by federal authorities for allegedly pressuring its owners, players, advertisers, and partner television networks not to do business with a competing league fronted by rapper Ice Cube. The Justice Department's Antitrust Division is looking into claims raised by officials involved in Big Three, a three-on-three basketball league that largely features retired NBA players, the Wall Street Journal reported Wednesday. Big Three executives met with DOJ officials in Washington, D.C. in January to flesh out their claims that the NBA was violating federal antitrust law, according to the Journal. Sources told the Journal that the Justice Department is looking to ascertain whether the NBA has pressured its owners from investigating in the nascent Big Three. The investigation, which was first revealed last week by the news site TMZ, is looking into whether the NBA leaned on its advertisers and TV partners to shun Big Three. The NBA has denied claims that it has sought to keep its own players from participating in Big Three events, which was co-founded by the former NWA rapper and popular actor of the Friday franchise. So far, just one active NBA player, Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics, has taken part in a Big Three game, competing in last summer's All-Star contest. I also want to talk about another independent league, the Negro League, and next. But Tony, do you have anything in terms of like Ice Cube and?
Yeah, that was pretty unfortunate that that had came about, but obviously they ironed out all their differences. But and I know what we segue into, with the Negro Baseball League, because he was making money. Ice
Yep.
Cube was making money, a lot of money, and they wanted that money for themselves. If that's the case, they allegedly wanted that money for themselves. That's all that is. That's my commentary on that. Every time it gets to that point, you got a successful business. Okay, if they can't take it over, they're going to find some way, to try to rip it up under your feet. Uh, Unlike the American Basketball Association that started back in the 1960s and went defunct probably after 10, 15 years. This is a whole new different case. They're saying that he was competing against the NBA. I don't think it's like that. I don't look at it like that. This is 3-on-3 basketball.
Thank
And
you.
as you have said at the top of your presentation, this is mainly a former basketball player, except for the exception of Jaylen Brown, currently play for the Boston Celtics. But money, 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 money. Okay.
Right.
And when you
And
see stuff like that, it's just not just the NBA. It's things that has their tentacles in the NBA. We
yep.
want that money too. Okay. We want that money too. So that
Bro, I saw I don't know if you've seen it, but I saw a basketball league in Africa, and they
well,
had a US team there. It was like US something something something.
um,
And
and,
that
and
was
that's another thing too, because
crazy.
there's a lot of international things going on with basketball. I'm glad you brought that up too, because I know I had this discussion with Mike Brown, who coached the Nigerian team here in the Olympics a few years ago. Okay, and some of those players were NBA players, but they're from Africa. All right, basketball is an international sport. You just can't corral it. All right, and another thing is they're talking about the NBA is talking about starting a whole new league in these other countries. Specifically the South American country, because they got some really good ball players out there too. You know, from Venezuela all the way across to the Dominican Republic. Okay, they got some really good. They're trying to develop these players and things like that. We're talking about an international game. Okay, you just can't corral it for yourself. These athletes are playing from all over, and yes, we have extremely, we have a large amount of athletes in the National Basketball Association today who have roots to Africa. Practically, we all do have roots, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm talking about the authentics. Okay, I'm not talking about what they're calling today what the FBAs, the Foundational Black Americans. I'm talking about people who have roots, born, whatever, okay,
Right. Like
related
recent
to Africa.
recent transfers to the United
Recent
States.
transfers,
Yeah.
exactly. Those types. It's an international game.
Well,
But yeah, the NBA is trying to expand because they're trying to make money in other countries. That's what they do.
and it's just crazy because it's okay for the NBA to expand, but when it comes to somebody like Ice Cube,
Ice Cube.
who happens to be black,
What I say
and,
about the last segment, man?
you know what I'm saying? Like,
It's okay when you do it, but it's a problem when I get in the game.
yeah,
It's a problem.
And that it once again, that goes across all mediums. I mean, I've been involved in the entertainment industry for over 18 to 20 years, right? When we talk about the agents in sports or agents in, entertainment industry, right? If you could go ahead and play a basketball or play a guitar, but when it comes to this business, you just gonna have to sit back because we need to handle this. And it's just insane, you know what I mean, how like that stuff works. So let's go on to Rube Foster here and the Negro League. Rube Foster, he was the So another independent-minded person named Rube Foster wanted to start, now known as the Negro League. So let's go into this story. A 20th century baseball institution telling the story of baseball in America in the first decades of the 20th century, while only using the names of stars like Babe Ruth, Rogers Hornsby, and Joe DiMaggio, is indeed only telling half the story. For while Major League Baseball powered on as America's favorite sports through the turn of the century, the Roaring Twenties, the Great Depression, and World War II, an equally talented and equally entertaining league, if not more so in the eyes of some, was also thrilling fans in many of the same ballparks. Black Americans have played the national pastime since it first spread across the country like wildfire during the Civil War, but they were barred from the highest levels of organized baseball by unwritten rules and gentlemen's agreements. As the 1800s came to a close, Black players still organized teams and brainstormed across the country, but it wasn't in the organized form fans have come to know today until one of the brainstorming players, a dominant pitcher named Rube Foster, envisioned a league where those Black stars could properly showcase their talents. Foster formed the Chicago American Giants Club in 1911 and negotiated for the team to play at the White Sox Stadium's Southside Park, but he soon desired a way for his club to control its own destiny, including its gate receipts and its scheduling. Legends were quickly born and grown with Negro League competition. Stars like Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige, Cool Papa Bell, Martin Dihigo, Turkey Stearns, Judy Johnson, Oscar Charleston, and many, many more would soon become household names for both Black and white baseball fans across America. The NNL remained strong into the eye of the Great Depression, which destroyed all but a few strong independent clubs by the early 1930s. However, organized Black baseball rose again in 1933 with the founding of the new Negro League, new Negro National League, soon followed by the Negro American League. 1933 also saw the introduction of the East-West All-Star Game in Chicago, which rivaled the Major League's All-Star Game, also introduced that year in popularity and attendance. Negro League baseball remained widely popular through the 1930s and early 1940s, with an estimated 3 million fans coming to ballparks during the 42nd season. I mean, once again, we have another entity, the Negro League, which was independent. And it said, even in this article, that, let me see here, that if it says an equally talented and equally entertaining league, if not more so than Major League Baseball at the time, in the eyes of some, was also thrilling fans in many of the same ballparks. So, Tony, what's your take on this? I mean, in terms of, starting leagues, competing with
Man,
leagues, you know what I'm saying?
I'm so passionate about the history of the Negro baseball leagues. As you know, we have a museum in Kansas City dedicated to the achievement, the accomplishment, um, just the love for the game of baseball, and the power and independence that it wielded when it was in the operation. I see you got Rube Foster on there. He founded the first National Negro League, and he owned a team, the Chicago Giants. He used to play himself. He was a pitcher, but as you get older, you get off on the other things. But he had owned the Chicago Giants, and it was an extremely profitable business. These are baseball offered a career, a pretty steady, productive career, personally and financially, for these baseball players, because they played baseball all year round. Not only they played here in the States, they played in these other countries, South America, Puerto Rico, Dominican, Cuba, and also some of those players from those countries, they played in the league as well that couldn't play in the major leagues. I think its contribution to baseball is probably none other than anything else that I've ever seen. And the reason why I say that, because it was a business.
Mm-hmm.
It was a business when Jackie Robinson was pulled up. Remember, he was playing with the Kansas City Monarchs. He was playing with the Kansas City Monarchs of the Negro Baseball League. And when he was pulled up, it was understood that all the owners in Major League Baseball were seeing the money that was being made at the gates to see these black baseball players. They basically wanted that money.
Mm.
So what do you have to do? You have to develop you have to
Sounds
do an
like
experiment.
it seems like a pattern is there, Tony.
Yeah, we're talking about this. Baseball was the third largest business, black business in the country. The third largest.
Yep.
The third largest. And they had all these teams. Okay, they had the Pittsburgh Crawford, the Kansas City Monarchs, American Chicago American Giants, St. Louis Stars, the Detroit Stars, uh, the Birmingham Barons, the Memphis, what was their team? The Atlanta Crackers. I mean, a whole slew of these teams, a whole slew of it, and they were making money. They were making money. Yeah, the New Jersey Newark Eagles. That was owned by a woman. That was owned by a black woman. The New
Wow.
Jersey, yeah, okay. And she ran everything. She was the owner. She was the accountant. I mean, she was doing everything. Okay, that's just how valuable that was. But they were seeing all that money. These white owners were seeing all that money that was made there. We got to get that money. Okay, we got to sell some of these Cracker Jacks and hot dogs and tickets. To that crowd. We got a section for them. Come on, and it pretty much dismantled the league, because now you're taking all the best of the crop from the Negro League that's coming up to the big league, basically. And as we know, even back in the 1920s, that most of those players were probably a lot better than those Major League Baseball players that were playing at that time.
Mm.
Okay, we already know about Josh Gibson and his accomplishment, especially
Yep.
his slugging percentage. I think he hit over 900 home runs. Well, those stats counts today in the MLB. They accepting those stats today. Okay. Then you have Satchel Paige, who was pitching probably until he was 60 years old. When he was brought up with the Cleveland Indians, he probably was about 45, 45 or more years of age, and he was the rookie of the year. He was the rookie of the year. Now I think Cleveland won they won a title, the MLB World Series, his first year there too as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I have to go back and check. It was one of those years, so he's a champion as well. So we have some famous baseball players coming up out of there. I still praise them today. I still talk about them today. I do everything. I am going to go to that museum in Kansas City. That's on my bucket list. I am in contact with Mr. Hendrick, who's the director of the museum, Bob Kendrick. I'm sorry, Bob Kendrick, who is the director of the National Baseball League Museum in Kansas City. He comes to Sacramento every fall, where they put on a National Negro League Baseball fundraiser for the museum. So some of the best high school talent in Northern California, whether you're black or Latino, get to play in this game. And the sponsors are Jerry Manuel, who used to be, he played ball and he was a major league manager for the Chicago White Sox himself. Dusty Baker, Greg Vaughn, who used to play ball, the Lees, Derek Lee, father, and his uncle, Laron Lee. They're all part of this. And Jerry Royster, probably one of the more famous, outside of Dusty Baker, probably one of the more famous ball player and manager that came, from the Sacramento region. And yes, we did meet those two gentlemen that you have on the screen, Mr. Corbin and Mr. Riddle. Mr. Riddle wrote a book about, I think, was it Mr. Riddle? Dennis Biddle?
Yep.
Yeah, he wrote a book. Yeah, right. Well, these guys, you did that segment on them too. You were there. You did that segment on them. Still trying to get pensions. Now it's only about 30 Negro Baseball League players that are alive today. Probably even less. There are probably up to about 100, but there's only like 30 that's really certified, qualified ball players because they played a lot longer. Because in that pool of 100 that are still alive today, they probably only play like one or two games in the Negro Baseball League. They're still part of the fraternity and stuff, but they didn't have longevity in the league, but they did play. These two gentlemen played at least 2 years. And I think right now, if they haven't, they should be getting a pension from the MLB. But yeah, they put that on at Sacramento State. They put that fundraiser on at Sacramento State every fall. They're going to have it again this year. They have a big turnout, a lot of activities going on, and it's for a good cause.
Absolutely.
It's right here in our own city, Sacramento.
Yeah, if you haven't yet seen the interview that I did with James Coben and Dennis Biddle, please check that out here on Eman the Mass Media Group. I was fortunate. It was funny, man, because at the time, I thought, I brought my camera out there because my nephew, he plays baseball. And so he was part of the, event activities there that day. So I was, following him. So I brought my camera out, but I didn't bring my microphone. And I was like, oh, man, this is crazy. But I had to do it anyway. Because,
you had to do it. You had to get something.
I was just like, so the audio came out pretty decent, but I had to get like real close to them brothers because I was like, man, but I had to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? Grassroots.
What was significant about that segment, that work that you did? You were asking all the right questions. You were asking all the right questions because when you got to the pension thing, it was like, oh man, I know I had interviewed a couple of them, and later on, I interviewed Mr. Biddle for a follow-up story, and I was able to mention it. It was about the pensions when I wrote the story. But if it wasn't for that interview, I probably wouldn't have got the idea, to do a follow-up behind you to talk about those pensions, because those pensions are really important. So you were asking all the right questions on that. course, we always run into these technical difficulties, as we just did a few moments ago.
It's
But
all
hey,
good. Make it
hey,
work.
you got the job done. You completed what you was trying to do.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing too, man. And this goes, I want for those who are actually listening to this right now and that do want to either pursue media or pursue whatever you want to in life, not just media. I mean, if you want to lose weight, eat better, whatever, then just do it. You know what I mean? Stop being so hung up on is this gonna look perfect? Is this not gonna look, this way? Because life is too short to be, worrying about if you can't capture that moment, or if you can, you just go get it. I know sometimes outside of what we do here on in the mass media group, I also do film stuff outside of that. And sometimes you have things planned, for example, for like a film shoot or a music video shoot, and you get there, the script's ready, the shot list is ready, and next thing you know, something just happens. And so at the time, you either tell yourself, do I just quit because we don't have this exact you know way that it's going, or do we push through it and get done what we need to get done? And that includes reparations. We always got to tighten reparations.
Yes.
And the pensions for our good brothers in the Negro baseball
league. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So man, I just wanted to first of all, thank them and thank you.
Oh,
man.
yeah. I forget now. One of them played for the Indianapolis Clowns. One of them, I think, one of them played for the Chicago Americans, if I'm not mistaken, either. I do have those same baseball cards that you have. I have to go back and check though. But they might even play for a couple of those teams.
Right.
Back in the day.
Absolutely, man. So before we get out of here, the big question, right? Because this is we're talking about being independent minded, right? And kind of how Shedeur Sanders got to his level of his thinking, regardless of people think that he is arrogant or not. But there's something there, right? He's educated, he's smart. Obviously he's a good football player, but his mother and father, not only Shedeur, but all their children, right?
Mhm.
They've been heavily involved in their lives. So I just want to get your take, man, on what do these individuals have in common? We have LeVar Ball, Earl Woods, Richard Williams, LeBron James, and Deion Sanders. So I know those people who are probably like watching this right now are probably saying, well, what do they have in common? I don't know. Do you want me to go first, man?
Well, they all got kids in sports. And they all groom their kids to excel in sports. They're all athletes. That's basically what it is. LeVar Ball, he is the father of the Ball brothers. LaMelo, D'Angelo, and Lonzo. Two of them play in the NBA. One of them is on the rise to be a famous hip hop artist. Earl Woods, Tiger Woods' dad. Okay, Tiger Woods came out the womb. Excuse my language. Hitting the golf balls. King Richard Williams, Serena and Venus. LeBron James and Bronny James. They both play on the same team, the Los Angeles Lakers. And of course, Deion Sanders, whose sons are currently on NFL rosters. All of them. Excellence. That's what we're trying to reach here. Success, to be success and excel in what you do in sports, or even outside sports too. Because I also know that Deion's daughter, when they went to Jackson State, the HBCU there in Jackson, Mississippi, she played volleyball, and then when she transferred to Colorado, she played she was on the women's volleyball team as well. So when you talk about all his children, let's not leave her out the equation as well, Amoya. But yes, that's what they all have in common. whether you like them or not. Me personally, I respect all of them for what they have did, and that should be an example, going forward. You don't have to do it in the same blueprint that they have, but at least you know that, if you kids have, these dreams and aspirations, they can reach them. They can get
Absolutely
there.
too, man. And just to, elaborate on what you said, I think it's also important that, as black men, especially fathers who become fathers as black men, there's a lot of stereotypes and tropes about black men not being involved in their children's lives. And, you know, maybe partially is because, I mean, that could be post traumatic slave syndrome. That could be, the
Yes.
system that we live in,
Right.
systemic racist white supremacy.
Right.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons, but regardless of those reasons, there are many, many black men who are involved heavily in both their children's lives, whether it be their daughters and or sons' lives. And these individuals, these black men that you see on the screen, regardless if it's sports or not, these men, right, would have taken the same steps and the same attitude towards whatever event or thing that their um, sons and daughters, their children would have participated in, right? Because we have Earl Woods from Correct. He was, a veteran, in the
Mm-hmm.
military. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you definitely have somebody who understood about discipline,
Discipline.
right? And so that's also gets down to this whole thing too. Some people say Deion Sanders didn't have a lot of discipline. Really? Are you how is that? I mean, he was one of the greatest DBs in history.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? How did he? Now you
Probably
may
one of the more successful two-way players because he played in the
that too.
Major League Baseball.
Baseball on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you say that he didn't have
Two sports
discipline?
athlete. I
Two
meant to
sports
say.
athlete. And well, now I don't know. I mean, Bo Jackson. I
Bo
mean, I don't
Jackson was
know.
definitely one of the great two-way players before he had that injury. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest
Two
with you, I don't
sports.
know any of his stats, but I'm just talking about just as an athlete. I mean, definitely Bo Jackson's up there. I don't know anybody athletically that on both football and
I haven't seen one
baseball.
since. I
Yeah.
haven't seen one since. But they,
So,
they were saying that LeBron James could have made, could have played both ways too. He could have played
oh,
football and
yeah.
basketball.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he definitely has the height and the weight for both sports for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I think they won a championship in football when he was in high school, as well as a basketball championship.
Wow.
I got to go back and look, but he was a really gifted football player. He may have been playing baseball too. I know we see him a lot with a New York Yankee hats on all the time. I'm pretty sure he was out there, throwing that baseball around as well too. But yeah. I mean, we talking about the black men. Yeah, all parents I know want their kids to succeed in anything, whether it's sports, professional careers, and in other areas. That's just the way it is. Okay, this just all happens to be in sports, and it has worked. Okay, I know a lot of people were down on LeBron James' sons being in there, but I am okay with that because of the path that Bronny has been through. I mean, and then that little issue that he had, before he entered University of Southern California his freshman year. Well, he did all of that. He got through it, his medical issues, his medical condition, and he's in the league. He made his dream and his dad's dream come true by him being drafted and being on the same team. Now, did it look good? No, I have to be honest. But it's what he wanted.
Yep.
And that is what happened. So call it what you want, because if it was your son, you probably would do the same too. probably would do the same too, as all these men have.
Absolutely, bro. And at the end of the day, man, it really gets down to, especially here in America, opportunity, right?
Opportunity.
And that's outside as we segue to the end here, beyond the sports, even beyond the sports, Black Americans, the history of Black Americans in this country, who built this country, right? Oftentimes, all we've asked for is the same opportunity that you've been given to everybody else. And
There you
when we've
go.
been given that opportunity, we have thrived here in America. I mean, I know we got the Tulsas, we got the Rosewoods, just two examples. Um,
We got the
but
Russell Cities.
Russell cities, obviously, we got down south, with why am I drawing a blank? I can't
Santa
believe
Monica.
Santa Monica, going up a little bit higher into thank you, sir.
Allensworth.
Allensworth. Thank you, sir. Cullen Allen's Allensworth. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when we as individuals and especially as a community, decide that, look, we want something better for ourselves because, we're Americans, we deserve it, and we work for free here, and so our ancestors work for free, and we as American citizens, we continually, not only culturally but through inventions. I mean, look at the music. Without blues, there would be no modern day American music
No, it
industry
wouldn't.
at all,
Or jazz.
or jazz, or anything dealing with
Or
music
hip hop. Hip hop.
or hip hop.
All these genres are operated around the world, are functioning around the world. That all
Country,
comes from Black American culture.
country
Period.
music,
Country
like
music, all
country,
of it.
yeah, just yeah. The billions, now trillions of dollars throughout history that music is made off the culture of Black Americans. So, on that note, man, do you want to give people, where they can reach you if they need to? I know you put up some stories every once in a while.
Yeah, if you would please visit www.publicityagent.org. I'm doing some independent news on my own across all sections: news, sports, social issues, politics, just some things I'm doing on my own. And I'm going to be doing a lot more of that. We're going to be adding a lot more video into that. So just check it out and tell me how you feel about it. That's www.publicityagent at .org, and I can be reached at arayharvey@yahoo.com. That's ARAYHARVEY. And everybody know me by my birth name, Antonio Ray Harvey, but please call me Tony. But you can make those contacts. And once again, for Beyond the Sports, thank you for this invitation, Omoya. Let's do it again.
Yeah, man, it was fun, man.
Okay.
This definitely was
We've
fun,
been
man.
doing that a lot too on another platform that is called Heritage Sports Talk,
Okay.
and we've been putting out segments on Instagram. It's getting big. We're growing a large audience. We'll be doing it live here, as we get more comfortable with it. It's about 4 or 5 hosts that do this, and we talk about the main big four sports, but we talk about everything. We talk about
Mm,
golf. We talk about tennis, women's basketball, of course, blacks in motorsports. Okay,
yeah.
we just was talking about the Kentucky Derby. We just don't stay in one area. We go through all of this. Okay, and not only that, it's an inclusion with other people, with other backgrounds. So what we're saying is, I don't care if you're black, white, Latino, Asian, Jewish, Mormon, whatever. If you have a story to tell, as far as sports, come on and look at that platform. We're basically on YouTube. You can find it. Heritage Sports Talk on
All
YouTube.
right, family.
Look for that
Heritage
too.
Sports Talk. Heritage
Yeah.
Sports Talk. Family, go out there, support, support, support. Like, share, and subscribe to that channel, Heritage Sports Talks, in the building, man. So once again, brother, I always appreciate you, and everybody, please like, share, and subscribe to this platform. We try our best to give you guys a different take, on current events, and hopefully, if this finds you well, you go ahead and support our channel as usual. So, on that note, everyone, have yourself a good time. As always, peace and reparations in the building, and we will see you next time. This is actually a Beyond the Sports segment, right? This is the first one. Maybe we got to do
It's the
more.
first one. It's going to be a second one. It's going to be a third one. I can see that
Yeah,
already.
man.
I'm liking this already.
Let's do it. All right,
Let's
fam.
do
We
it.
out. Peace.
Peace, love, and solidarity. I'm out.